Having homemade treats around the house is a great idea for when a craving for sweet strikes. Fighting games are one of the few styles of video games that characters from other titles can easily slot into, and we've seen many cases of this over the years. While it can be tempting to simply pick up a ready-made package of mass-produced cookies to satisfy your sweet tooth, did you know there's a reason why some people have a bigger sweet tooth than others? Home baking doesn't have to be complicated, nor does it have to require dozens of ingredients and lots of time preparing, as Jessica Morone of Jess Loves Baking demonstrates with this 5-ingredient chocolate caramel cookie bar recipe. We dare you to find a better combination than chocolate and caramel, especially in a cookie bar format, which makes it easy to enjoy. Thanks to the classic match and a few quick shortcuts, these bars will definitely end up in your regular rotation. But, which ones are the best and most memorable? Here are the top 10 best fighting game cameos. 10. Morone remarks, "I've been making them for a few years and they are just so delicious." While she's glad to experiment with other recipes, she confirms, "This is honestly my favorite recipe for bar cookies." Gather the 5 ingredients required for this chocolate caramel cookie bar recipe. Aside from the decadent flavor, one of the appealing factors of these cookie bars is their limited ingredient list. Morone accomplishes this by using a package of double chocolate chunk cookie mix for the base of the bars. Final Fantasy VII characters. Ehrgeiz. Despite the fact it wasn't created as a Final Fantasy VII fighting game, Dream Factory's Ehrgeiz is perhaps best known for its inclusion of FF7 characters in its PlayStation release. To turn the powdered cookie mix into a texture that holds, she mixes it with melted butter and an egg. The game differs from other traditional 3D fighting games in that it takes inspiration from wrestling, allowing players to move around freely and not be facing each other at all times. Although the Betty Crocker brand Morone uses is available in most supermarkets, Morone suggests using other brands of a similar size in case you can't find it. For a slightly different take, you can also experiment with flavors like using chocolate chip cookie mix or sugar cookie mix instead of double chocolate, she notes. Morone keeps the filling equally simple by combining a package of individually wrapped soft caramels with sweetened condensed milk. The caramel candies dissolve into the condensed milk, creating a smooth sweet caramel filling. Cloud and Tifa from Final Fantasy VII were unlockable in the arcade version of the game, with Sephiroth, Yuffie, Vincent, and Zack added to the PS1 version of the game too. Morone hasn't strayed from the flavor, because I love caramel so much, but if you want to try a different filling, she says, I'm sure something like peanut butter would work. In a large bowl, combine the cookie mix, melted butter, and egg. First things first, set your oven to preheat to 350 F while you assemble the bars. This was used heavily to promote and sell the game, with Cloud being a focal point of the game's cover art. Overall, it is quite a fun game and has a good RPG-style story mode. I have quite a few fond memories of playing it growing up. 9. Line an 8x8-inch pan with parchment paper and set it aside. Next, empty out the contents of the double chocolate cookie mix package into a large bowl. Pour in the melted butter and crack the egg to add it to the bowl. Spartan 458 Dead or Alive 4. Initially a non-canon character in the Halo universe, with her just being created as a generic Master Chief-style character, Spartan 458 eventually became canon to the universe in later Halo titles, being mentioned in logs. Mix everything together until the ingredients form a dough. Press the dough into the prepared pan and bake it now. Transfer 1/2 of the dough into the 8x8-inch pan you prepared. Using your hands or a spatula, press the dough firmly into the bottom of the pan, spreading it out so that it fills the base from edge to edge. Originally the developers wanted to include Master Chief, but it was instead agreed upon that they would create a unique character that resembles him but instead will be female. 8. Try to ensure that the dough is relatively uniform in thickness since this will be the bottom layer of the bars. Next, place the pan into the preheated oven for 8 to 10 minutes, until the edges start to firm up and the center is set. You'll use the other half of the dough later. Melt the caramels and sweetened condensed milk. Now it's time to make the caramel filling. Ezio Auditore da Firenze, Soul Calibur v Assassin's Creed's Ezio Auditore da Firenze serves as a guest character in Soul Calibur v, continuing on the tradition of guest characters in almost every game.
Place a medium saucepan on the stovetop and add the soft caramels, make sure you've unwrapped them, and the sweetened condensed milk. Heat the mixture over low to medium heat until the caramels have completely melted and the texture is smooth. Be sure to keep stirring the contents of the saucepan to prevent them from sticking to the bottom. Once you've reached the desired consistency, remove the saucepan from the heat. Pour the caramel mixture over the cookie base. Now it's time to move on to the next step required to assemble the bars. Carefully pouring the caramel mixture over the cookie base in the 8x8-inch pan. He appears as he did in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood as his middle-aged incarnation. Use a spatula to spread it out properly so that the caramel layer is even throughout. You'll want to make sure to get some caramel all the way to the edges so that each bite is satisfyingly rich and delicious. Crumble the rest of the cookie dough on top of the caramel and bake. It's time to add the last layer before baking the bars. Take the remaining half of the cookie dough and crumble it over the top of the caramel. Soul Calibur has a heavy focus on weapons, making Ezio a perfect fit as he uses 5 weapons in the game: hidden blades, swords, a crossbow, a dagger, and a hidden gun. 7. Kratos. Mortal Kombat, 2011. Kratos became the first guest character in the Mortal Kombat series in 2011's reboot of the series. The God of War character was available exclusively in the PS3 and PS Vita versions of the game, as God of War is a Sony IP. It's fine to have some caramel peeking out, but try to sprinkle the dough across the surface. With Kratos being a demigod, he fit right into the Mortal Kombat universe, with characters such as Raiden, Fujin, and Shinnok all being gods too. Kratos hasn't appeared in any other Mortal Kombat game, and it's unclear as to whether he will or not, but he will always go down in history as being the character that opened the door for future guest appearances, which now include the likes of Joker, Predator, Freddy Krueger, and Jason Voorhees. 6. Bad box art. Mega Man, Street Fighter X Tekken. In recent years, the original box art for Mega Man has become a meme online, so Capcom decided to poke fun at themselves by including this version of the character as a playable fighter in Street Fighter X Tekken. Pop the pan back into the oven at 350 F and bake the bars for an additional 15 minutes. Since the cookie mix is dark in color, there isn't a simple clue as to when it's done, like it changing to a golden brown, Morone remarks. For years, Street Fighter and Tekken were 2 of the biggest fighting series in gaming, before deciding to come together for a series of games. However, she adds, you can tell by looking at it if the cookie mix in the center looks dry and cooked rather than still wet. She notes that otherwise, you can also touch it to see if it feels dry and set. Once you're satisfied the bars are ready, remove them from the oven. Let the bars cool, then serve these tasty treats, although you'll want to dig right in. Let the bars cool down completely so that the caramel can set. Then, cut them into squares and enjoy these tasty chocolate caramel cookie bars. Morone suggests you store them in a sealed container at room temperature. Capcom was tasked with bringing the Tekken characters to a Street Fighter-style game, while Bandai Namco was set to bring Street Fighter characters to Tekken. In 2012, Street Fighter X Tekken was released to mixed reviews. Unfortunately, this led to Tekken X Street Fighter being delayed and then ultimately cancelled. It is a shame, became Tekken X Street had the potential to be one of the greatest fighting games of all time, but it is unlikely we will ever see it released now. 5. Yoda, Darth Vader, Starkiller, Soul Calibur IV. Soul Calibur IV and Star Wars: The Force Unleashed were both released in 2008, so Bandai Namco and LucasArts decided to collaborate and include the classic characters Darth Vader and Yoda, as well as the Force Unleashed Starkiller as player characters in the game. PlayStation 3 players had Darth Vader unlocked from the start, while Xbox 360 gamers had Yoda. She says, these will keep for several days and still be just as delicious, even a few days later. Depending on your willpower, you might find yourself in the same position as Morone, who says, they are so dangerous that I have to give the extras away so I don't end up eating them all. 1. 17.5-ounce package double chocolate chunk cookie mix 1/2 cup butter, melted 1 egg. 1. 11-ounce package individually wrapped soft caramels 1/3 cup sweetened condensed milk. Preheat your oven to 350 F. Line an 8x8-inch pan with parchment paper, then set it aside. In a large bowl, combine the cookie mix, melted butter, and egg and mix everything until the dough comes together. Press 1/2 of the dough into the bottom of the prepared pan and bake it in the preheated oven for 8 to 10 minutes, until the edges are firm and the center is set. In a medium saucepan, combine the unwrapped caramels with the sweetened condensed milk. Heat the contents of the saucepan over medium-low heat until the caramels have melted and the mixture is smooth. Pour the heated caramel over the baked cookie base. Crumble up the remaining half of the cookie dough and sprinkle it over the caramel layer. Bake the bars in the preheated oven for another 15 minutes until the center looks dry. Remove them from the oven and let them cool completely until they set. cut the bars into squares and serve. But, rather than make each platform exclusive, players could either purchase or unlock the other character, making them both accessible on either console. Players could also unlock Starkiller by completing arcade mode with either Star Wars character. They were all really fun to use too, with weapons playing a large role in Soul Calibur, so the lightsaber fit right in and didn't feel out of place. 4. Snake. Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Solid Snake from the Metal Gear Solid series was originally a possible character in Super Smash Bros. Melee, but by the time Hideo Kojima asked for him to be included, the development of the game was in its later stages and the deal couldn't be made. Instead, he became one of two third-party characters in the next entry, Super Smash Bros. Brawl on the Nintendo Wii, with the other character being Sonic. Since then, he has become a fan favorite and is one of the better fighters to use. He is even voiced by the legendary David Hayter in the English versions, as well as his Japanese voice actor Akio Atsuka in the Japanese. 3. Jason Voorhees. Mortal Kombat x Mortal Kombat is known for its violence and gore, and when it comes to movies one name is strongly associated with violence, Jason Voorhees, making this a match made in heaven, or hell depending on how you look at it. Added alongside Tanya, Tremor, and Predator in the first Combat DLC pack, Jason Voorhees features his classic design and has fatalities that are as brutal as you would expect. 2. Akuma. Tekken 7. Following the release of Street Fighter X Tekken, which brought Tekken characters to the 2D world in a Street Fighter game, Bandai Namco was supposed to develop Tekken X Street Fighter, which would add Street Fighters to the Tekken universe. Ultimately, the project was cancelled and it is unlikely that we will ever see the game released. Instead, Street Fighter's Akuma was included in the roster for Tekken 7, which gives us a glimpse at what could have been, and likely as close as we will get to seeing Tekken X Street Fighter become a reality. Akuma was made a focal point of the game's story too, with him playing a large role in the story mode where he faced Heihachi, Kazuya, and other characters. The Street Fighter style of moves surprisingly works in the 3D environment, which does make sense as Capcom tried their hand at it years earlier with the Street Fighter X series, but I wish we could have gotten more of this. Who knows, Tekken X Street Fighter might surface one day. 1. Link, Heihachi, Spawn. Soul Calibur 2. Without a doubt, the best cameo appearances in a fighting game came in Soul Calibur 2, with there being 3 cameos in the game except they were platform-specific. GameCube owners would get the chance to play as Link from Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda series, while PlayStation 2 owners could play as Heihachi, a character from Tekken which is another Bandai Namco IP, and finally, Xbox players could play as Spawn from Todd McFarlane's comic series of the same name. This was a great move because it left no platform out, with each receiving their own unique character, and also helped multi-platform owners decide which console they purchased the game on. I guess if you wanted to play as them all then it'd get a bit expensive. Today we see a lot of platform-exclusive content, whether it is timed exclusivity or a certain platform receiving unique content. But quite often this comes at the expense of another missing out. So kudos to Bandai Namco for giving everyone an extra piece of content to enjoy. Previous article.